Hey guys, Ryan from the future here. Just a heads up before today's episode. This was recorded before Kat was federally indicted for protesting at an ICE facility in Chicago. So obviously we did not ask her about that because that would have been impossible because it hadn't happened yet. But I do think this episode does go into a lot of the realities that Kat is facing as an extremely online congressional candidate, which leads right into how she ended up getting indicted by the FBI. So without further ado, here is our episode. How are you, by the way? I feel like you've had a pretty rambunctious month or two.
Yeah. Honestly, a year, but the last month or two has been nuts.
I'm sure.
I'm good.
Good. Well, we're going to talk more about that, but I want to welcome you back to the show. This is your second time. Welcome to the Two Timers Club. And my question for you is, now that you're running for office, how has the nature of people being mean to you online changed? Are they being mean to you in a different way, the same way? Like, how does that work?
Kind of the same way. I say a lot of times that the best practice for running for Congress is covering Nazis for half a decade.
Sure.
Because you understand what like weird hate is, and you understand what happens when people try to like dox you and stuff like that. You don't have to grow a thick skin while you're running, which is nice.
So it's like doing what you've done online for the last however many years has prepared you for being a politician more so than the politicians that are now going through this the first time.
100%. I mean, I think that's part of why I'm running, is because so many of our politicians don't understand the right, and they don't understand conspiracy theories and how right-wing media ecosystems change and affect our narratives and affect individuals. Like, part of why I'm running is they used our industry as a dry run for what they're doing to the federal government. But the difference is we chose to do this job, and now every American is being subjected to the same threats.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference is now we have like entire governmental wings tweeting about me. Like DHS posted about me for one of their ICE recruitment ads. They had someone in handcuffs in one of our volunteer shirts.
Hey, no such thing as bad publicity, right? Like that's...
Ask me when I'm in a gulag.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be probably nearby. Well, we're talking today about influencers and politics. What is the difference? How did we get to this point where like the only way it feels like to capture an audience of any kind, political, financial, attention based, is you have to put yourself out there online. And so we're going to be talking about that today on this show, Panic World, a show all about how the internet warps our minds, our culture, and eventually reality. My name is Ryan Broderick. With me, sometimes you will hear our producer, Grant Irving, when I allow him to speak. When I unmute his microphone. But joining me on today's show is a returning guest, Kat Abughazaleh. Welcome back to Panic World. Thank you for coming on. This is so great to have you back. And as you said, you've had a pretty wild time since you were last on this show.
Yeah, I think when I first came on the show, I wasn't even running for Congress then.
You weren't. No, you hadn't announced it yet. So thank you for, I know that you're big time now. You know, I thought maybe you'd be too big to come back on, but thank you. I want to start with just basic, what is the most surprising thing that you've encountered since you started running for office?
Great question. I knew that running for office would be inaccessible for people that aren't like already rich. I didn't realize the extent that goes. And honestly, the most stressful thing of running for office is like the debt hole that I know that I am getting myself into. And like my job is a conflict of interest, and I've demonetized all my platforms because I don't think that our campaign should be behind a paywall.
Sure.
That means that my only income is a Patreon where people give me $1 a month to look at a picture of my cat. And I don't publicize it because I don't want people to feel pressured to do that. It's unbelievable how much of this system is built for the rich, not just with tax breaks. But like, did you know that if you're not an incumbent candidate, you can take a candidate salary if you're running for Congress?
I didn't know that.
It's calculated by half of your average income over the last 5 years. So if you've been making $200K over the last 5 years, cool, sure, it comes from your donations, but you have a $100K cushion. Pretty nice.
Right.
If you're a parent in a family of 4 and you're making the federal poverty line for a family of 4, which is $32K, that's slashed to $16,000. Someone that's already been making $200K probably doesn't need the money as much as someone that's been making $32,000 but still wants to represent people. It's
Wow.
insane. That's how the system works. And we calculated mine. So I graduated into the pandemic, and then any income you've made before announcing that year is subtracted.
Right.
Since a lot of my payments came on like Jan 2 for the month before, I would be making like $12 a day. And after payroll, it just wasn't worth it. And so just not taking a candidate salary.
That's wild. I did not know about that at all. That's nuts. I feel like you are a great person to talk to at this very moment, especially though, because you have at least been experimenting with how do you transfer internet popularity into political influence, political audience, political support. And a lot of people, it feels like right now, are trying to do that. And so I wanted to start at what we could figure was the very first person to ever do this. So have you ever heard of Victoria Woodhall?
Maybe.
She was born in 1838 in Ohio. And she is, as best as we can tell, the first person to ever try such a thing. She divorced a cheating husband when she married at age 15. And she is actually the first woman to run for president in the U.S. In 1872, almost 50 years before women were even allowed to vote.
Was she racist? I bet she was racist.
I mean, I assume everyone was racist at this point. But her story is interesting. So she gained attention and notoriety because she was the first woman to run a stockbroker firm on Wall Street. So yeah, probably racist. In 1870. And she had been, okay, this is where it gets really fun. She was the personal spiritualist and medium of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the richest man on Wall Street.
Oh, we love a spiritual grifter.
Yes. Yeah, this is good, right?
Incredible. Nothing changes.
But apparently she was good. She was like, because one of the deals that Vanderbilt's companies made while she was like, advising him made like $500,000 in stock in 6 weeks.
It's cool how coincidences can work out like that.
It's very fascinating. She uses her money to start a newspaper, Woodhall and Claflin's Weekly, which was very controversial because it was very feminist and also socialist. It published the first English translation of the Communist Manifesto in 1871. And, she then immediately starts a presidential campaign, understanding that she has this platform. So how are you feeling about Miss Woodhull right now? Because it feels like she'd be very at home on Instagram today.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one of the things I'm seeing right now in terms of people translating online influence to political influence is a lot of people don't realize how to effectively communicate in political spheres, and especially communicate to people that aren't just in their echo chamber. And then also don't understand how to take that online influence offline.
Sure.
Because it doesn't, you have to do that. That's how you get votes. And it sounds like she understands communication in that way, which is cool.
I also think it's not an accident that she had a non-traditional path towards influence. And I think I've said this on the show before, but a lot of the discourse around influencers in particular, that word influencer, I think is very gendered. And I think
I was just about to say the same thing. Like a lot of people will be like, you're the influencer candidate. And like, no hate on influencers. I have never described myself as that. I am a researcher and journalist who does my work online. I realize that people don't get their information from text as much anymore. They get it from video. And I was like, I want to make sure people hear what I think they should hear. It feels very much like, young woman is doing this thing online. Like you aren't describing Ezra Klein as an influencer.
I mean, we should.
But we're not, even though it's like still, I don't want to make my work similar to Ezra Klein's at all, but like person in front of a mic on the internet, it's very gendered.
And for simplicity's sake today, I do want to use the word influencer as an umbrella term for anyone with influence online, because I think in a lot of ways,
the Pope, for instance,
I think the Pope was possibly the first influencer. Maybe Jesus.
Actually, that would be Jesus.
Yeah, it would probably be Jesus. The Pope would be the first aggregator.
Youth pastor voice. Yeah, the first influencer was?
Jesus, exactly. The Pope would have had a great blog. I think he does have a blog, actually. Anyways, so
Chicago Pope.
Chicago Pope, exactly. So the path towards influence and the path towards fame and notoriety, I think, has always been non-traditional, particularly for women, particularly for working class people, because they have to create a new framework for getting it. Just as you said in the opening, talking about salaries, like you don't have the same options that someone like Nancy Pelosi would have, or it's a different system for everyone else. And Miss Woodhall, going back to our story here, immediately causes a lot of chaos. Thomas Nast, one of the most influential political cartoonists of the time, had a caricature of her called Mrs. Satan. We're going to pull up an image for you.
Never mind. I love her.
Yeah.
This goes so hard. Someone made like a weird AI TikTok of me talking about how I have a shadow demon behind me all the time.
Sick.
That's like the modern version of this. That goes so hard. Oh my God.
It rips. And there's tons of gossip and cartoons about her. Well, here, let me show you another one. This is her. This one is hard as hell. This is her whipping a carriage full of with men as the horses. And what does it say here? Hold on, let me just zoom in. The text is kind of hard to read.
The Wall Street Hippodrome.
Yes. So this is her whipping. This is her whipping a carriage pulled by Wall Street tycoons.
The author's just showing their kink here.
Exactly. Yeah, we all want to be whipped by her. But this is not dissimilar, I think, from what you're saying. The constant attacks. I mean, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Laura Loomer, who I think would probably have if she could draw or had any talent at all, I think she'd probably be creating similar content about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something you especially see with women anywhere, in any space whatsoever. I mean, our work is devalued. Someone will always either you're too much of a slut or you're too much of a prude. There is this picture of me in fishnet leggings, and I'm wearing an outfit that I was wearing while I was bartending, and I was goofing off with my coworkers, and I'm sitting on top of the cooler, and I look great. Like, that is the picture, though, that so many people, including Laura Loomer, will post and be like, this woman wants to be in Congress. Right. And Laura Loomer, last I think she said, communist and Palestinian, pick a struggle, which like one of those I am. And also those are not like the same thing. She's also called me a communist jihadist wannabe hooker. Communist jihadist wannabe hooker. Okay. And at that point, I think like a communist hooker is just doing it for the love of the game.
That's true. It's mutual aid at that point, I think.
It's mutual aid at that point.
Yeah.
And like what they either realize and don't care or don't seem to realize is every time they do this, I get to fundraise off of it.
Right.
Like I remember one time when I first launched, someone posted that picture and they were like, look at her and she wants free preschool. And it was like, yeah, no, don't tell all the voters that I'm based and have fun and have worked like the quintessential working class job. Like, please don't tell everyone that. When Laura Loomer calls me a communist jihadist wannabe hooker, which is a very, all of those words make sense together. People are like, oh, that's if she hates that candidate. We actually have an anti-endorsement section on our website because it's like if they hate that person, that's pretty much an endorsement.
When Fox News or Laura Loomer attacks you, does it make that it works that way? Does it make politics feel more like professional wrestling to you, where like everyone's kind of a kayfabe?
Politics has always been professional wrestling, and anyone who wants to say otherwise is lying.
There's a lot of times where Fox News in particular will describe something and I'll be like, that sounds so awesome.
They did an article about this yesterday. They were like, Squad 2.0, radical Democrats taking over the party. And like the thumbnail was me and Zoran, both with bullhorns. And it was like,
sounds good to me.
Thanks, Fox. I didn't know that you endorse people.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Unfortunately, things did not work out as well for Miss Woodhall. Obviously, she did not become the first female American president. So Woodhall couldn't vote for herself on Election Day because she was in jail for obscenity charges. WNC Weekly had published a few days before the election an exclusive story that Henry Ward Beecher, a preacher and big cultural figure who was a major critic of Woodhall's, was having an affair. And he was very mad that they had reported such a thing. And so she was eventually acquitted, and we get all the modern obscenity laws after the trial, which is kind of interesting.
I love her.
It's an interesting sort of corollary to what we're seeing now. In I Want to flash forward about 100 years here. And
You're like, let's bring on Kat, who is a whore, who is whipping men in the streets. And let's talk about the 1-to-1.
You could easily Photoshop yourself, whipping a carriage with I don't know, whoever you want.
I don't have to Photoshop myself on that. Someone else is going to do it.
I'm sure, yeah. So the next person I want to bring up is Bella Abzug. She was a New York City member of Congress in the 1970s. She was outspoken, Jewish, progressive. She's someone that AOC gets compared to now. Her slogan for her first election was "A woman's place is in the House of Representatives."
I used to have a shirt with that on it, but it was from a Republican women's convention that my grandmother took me to.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat. She offered daycare for her campaign staff and volunteers, which was totally unheard of and is still pretty rare now. And she was very far to the left of the Democratic establishment at the time. So with Ed Koch, she led Congress to pass the first ever federal gay rights bill. She passed the pre-ADA wheelchair access laws. She was one of the first people to call for Nixon's resignation. And so she was a really effective politician.
Yeah.
But she was most known. She was known for having a gravelly Bronx-laced voice, a voice that Norman Mailer said could boil the fat off a taxi driver's neck.
Wow, that is descriptive.
Yeah, it kind of rolls. Once again, it's the same story, which is that if a woman runs for anything in politics, it gets reduced to more of a cultural fascination. It doesn't mean that woman can't excel. It is still something that we've been doing this for 200 years. I mean, you've talked a little bit about it, but what are the moral policing that you're sort of seeing about you, how you speak? What are they throwing at you right now?
Well, I mean, like what you just said, if she had had the most delicate, prim voice in the world, they'd be like, wow, look at this priss over here. She doesn't want to make any waves. There are a lot of because I'm in a very progressive district. This is a, solidly Democratic district. A lot of people have a lot of progressive values, but there are still these little subtle instances of sexism that we see. Sure. For instance, one of my opponents, when we're in the same headline for a local outlet, it's just one outlet that does this, but it will say use his last name and my first name. Sure. And I get that my last name is 11 letters, but that's not how journalism works.
No.
I have had some weird people that want to tell me to be less confrontational. And there was this guy that was just very clearly a Republican, the one in a 5-mile radius, that came to our booth at a street fair. And he was like, I don't think that we should have more housing. And I was like, why? And then he was like, well, and then gave me a nonsensical answer. And I was like, okay, but why? And then he just kept going. And I was like, you're obviously not going to vote for me, but why? And he was like, you need to stop asking why and be a little more polite. Say, sir, why do you think that? And I was like, I'm not going to do that. You're just here to annoy my volunteers. But that's always how I've been my whole life. Been called not ladylike enough, which is ironic because I'm very trodwife coded. I'm always wearing dresses and heels. I have a little 1950s apron that I wear when I cook, but that's just women's lives. Whatever you do will be wrong. So might as well do what you want.
Yeah, and this was true for Abzug too. And there was a ton said about how she spoke and how she dressed. She always wore a hat and dressed a lot more feminine than other congresswomen, and then was parodied by an impersonator. So an all-male New York press club hired basically kind of a drag queen to dance and sing, I guess I've never been the high fashion kind, Mother Nature gave me a big behind.
That's so straight, and that's so straight that they did that.
They were very mad about how she spoke. They apparently she yelled a lot. It's exactly what you're describing, which is this is not new. And what is also really interesting about her story is that she was very tapped into pop culture. There was not really the concept of what we would now call an influencer back then. Obviously, media was different, but Andy Warhol did do a promo painting for her Senate campaign, which is pretty sick. Here, we'll pull up the photo.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And there's her big hat. So it's she understood, how pop culture and how politics interact with each other, which is now something everyone has to do. I think one of the most interesting moves, and I would say that you're part of this trend as well, particularly on the left and on the Democrat side in the last 15 years, is the sign, Zoran's sign, Beto O'Rourke's sign, your sign, the idea of breaking from the red, white, and blue, the sort of making a brand. How much do you think about the imagery and like how your campaign performs online, because I've always wanted to know like exactly how much are you going like, okay, like we can A/B test this and this has got to look good for Instagram, or like how, like what are those decisions like?
I mean, like normal stuff, like fitting something for Instagram has different ratios than another platform. But so much of the campaign is experimental because I want it to be like, okay, I have a big platform. I can use it to run a campaign the way I want to. And so every time we think about doing things in that more traditional, like, let's focus group test this message, I'm like, wait, no, that's not the point of the campaign. People like have asked who runs my social media. I do.
Cool.
I run my social media. I just post as I do. Our creative director, Mia, who has designed a lot of the posters behind me, they're amazing. And we'll sometimes post like, if we have a video that's going out across platforms, but like a lot of the posts are just me and my thoughts. And, when we came up with the design for the campaign, me and Sam asked me, Sam's my campaign manager, what color scheme do you want? And I was like, orange, because orange is my favorite color. You can see it on my chair.
I see the chair, yeah.
Orange headphones here. I love orange. I think it's a delightful color. I think that it's underrated. It just is warm and happy for me. And then he was like, okay, we need a second color. And I was like, blue. I wanted kind of this contrasting look. And it kind of reminds me of like summer camp, like very summer, very
Sure.
Lake Michigan. And, but it wasn't like something that we tested. It was just what I like, what I want to do. I mean, I hear a lot about Zoran and Graham Plattner and myself being like, how are these people communicating so effectively? We're not. We're talking like normal people. Like that's really all it is. I have people be like, it reads like your platform was written by, you. And I was like, it was. And we have the most comprehensive platform in my race. And it was written by me and Sam. And that's why it sounds like it was written by us, because it was written by us and not a bunch of consultants. And I think in 2024 at the DNC, I got asked by like some consultants and some Dem operatives, because like my work was known for its authenticity. I actually don't really watch much video content. I just communicate how I'd want to be communicated to. And they were like, how do we make authenticity? And I was like, oh,
Jesus Christ.
You are fundamentally misunderstanding the thing you are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's just be you, as someone on Zoran's team said, like, let him cook. Yeah. And if you don't have the Riz, sorry.
Well, after the break, I want to talk about the first Democrat to try this in the modern age. But first, a word from our sponsors. Grant, who should our fake sponsors be this week?
I think we have to test it, do an A/B test.
Sure, yeah. Our sponsors will be whoever our Democratic think tank decides tests the best with our audience.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla, exactly, yeah. We love their tax credits. All right. There are all kinds of forces right now trying to make it harder for you to access the open, free internet. If you don't have a VPN, you should definitely take a look at NordVPN. NordVPN has 8,000 servers in 126 countries. Basically, what that means is you can use it to mask your IP address as one of those countries. So if you're in America and you're in a state where you're not allowed to access certain websites, well, you can just change your IP address to a place where those websites are accessible. Even better, NordVPN allows for one account to work across 10 devices. So you can have it on your phone, your iPad, your computer. It's great. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/panicworld. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee either, so you try it out, see if you like it. That link is in this episode's description, so you can go to NordVPN, nordvpn.com/panicworld and check it out. Do you know much about Howard Dean?
Yes. And okay. Actually, a lot of people talk about the Dean Scream. And okay. I talked to multiple people who were there, and they were like, first off, it didn't sound that weird. My thing is like outwardly progressive person. Obviously, anything will be manufactured to take them down.
Well, before the Dean Scream, Howard Dean was running a really interesting internet-based campaign. We've dug through this for a couple episodes now. It's such a fascinating treasure trove of like someone who clearly understood where things were headed, but like was either too early or not quite right. So this is how political insiders described Howard Dean and his internet following at the time. The big irony from my perspective from following online politics is that a lot of politicians have been loath to get on the web because they don't like losing control. Howard Dean learned the biggest one: stop being an asshole. We learned about the insular nature of this medium. It can do miraculous, wonderful things, but it can't win an election. It can change the world, but it can't win an election, which obviously we don't think is true now. But Dean was experimenting with a lot of really interesting tools. So his primary website was meetup.com. He was like using it to like get people to go to his rallies and his events. So Dean went to a New York City campaign event that was organized in 2003. 300 supporters showed up. He kept using it. So Zephyr Teachout, who's now like a local New York City politician, was Dean's director of internet organizing, and she helped Dean's meetup group become the #1 on the site. The group went from 3,000 members in 2003 to 140,000 in November. And here's a fun one for you. The previous #1 group on meetup.com at the time was witches.
Hell yeah.
Just witches. So it ended up correlating really closely with donors. So they would create small dollar donation events, use meetup.com to promote them. And he ended up with $115 million in small donations in Q3 of that year, which is pretty wild. He also started experimenting with fundraising emails by asking people to like give him money online. And he immediately got a reputation for having fans that were weird freaks. They were called the Deaniacs or the Deanie Babies. So about the Scream. Do you remember like it in culture at the time? Like, no, not at all.
No,
I vaguely remember it. I in my head, I sort of like put it in the same box as like the John Kerry waffling thing, like all of those like really early Bush era memes. Jib Jab. Do you remember Jib Jab? Yeah. And it just felt like really easy to pick apart Democrats at the time for some reason. And I wasn't old enough to like, I'd have to go back and like figure out like why that was so
9/11.
You think it was 9/11? Yeah, probably 9/11.
No, a lot of things in that time were because of 9/11.
Yeah, because of 9/11. I mean, in fact, that's like almost the answer to like all the mysteries on this show that we do. Is just like, oh, it's like probably 9/11's fault.
Probably 9/11. I can attest as an Arab kid growing up in Texas in 2000s. 9/11.
Probably 9/11. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dean obviously gets screamed out. Doesn't really make much of a splash afterwards, but his playbook is then taken by Obama, and Obama just professionalizes the hell out of it. They bet big on Facebook, MySpace, YouTube. How do you decide what platforms you're using? Because I saw, and I wanted to check back in on this with you, because I saw at the beginning of your campaign, you were going to focus on Blue Sky. Mm-hmm. You were going to say, we're not going to focus on X or Twitter. Blue Sky is going to be our major text-based platform. One, how do you stay sane using Blue Sky all the time? And two, has it worked?
Yeah. So, there's been a lot of discourse around Blue Sky over the last year or so, a lot of it from especially like centrist groups that are like, people are mean to us on there. And I personally like Blue Sky because it's instead of like cutting down on moderators, they're actually increasing that. It's much more transparent than pretty much any other major social media site out there. And it's super customizable. You can make a lot of feeds. It's just very user friendly in a way that a lot of social media companies seem to be moving away from. And one of the things we hear from like political operatives that complain about Blue Sky is there's no money there.
Right. Blue
Sky is the single largest raiser of money in terms of like by site for us.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We have raised more on Blue Sky than any other website. And I have been posting less on Twitter or X because it's a hellhole.
Sure, yeah.
It's awful.
Before you move on, are you comfortable like ballparking a figure there? I mean, I'm just so curious.
Yeah, let me see. Hold on.
Yeah, like, and I guess like how? Like, this is wild. How? Like, I guess like, what do you find that works? What's your strat for Blue Sky? Because it feels like such an untapped. I mean, the major criticism I get from any institutional person I deal with is that I pretty much only share my stuff on Blue Sky now, and so it doesn't exist. And like I don't know, like how are you doing it?
So we post across platforms, but like when I'm just thinking about something or writing about something, I post on Blue Sky, and we usually post there first. Where is Blue Sky on here? Yeah, we've raised almost $200,000 on Blue Sky since we launched.
That's amazing.
And that is just like a huge thing for this campaign is I hate spammy fundraising posts and emails and texts, but like we still need money because we're a grassroots campaign. I'm not getting it from rich people. We're actually ditched call time entirely, which is how most politicians get their money. They literally sit in a room and call people, like rich people, nonstop and ask for money. Most elected officials and candidates will do this for at least 4 hours a day. So we've ditched that for live streaming, which has been super successful. We have another stream tonight as we're recording this on Tuesday, the 14th. But for Blue Sky, I'll just like post something. And if it feels like something that if I read it, I would be like, yeah, that might make me want to donate to a candidate. I'll just put a link underneath of like, you want to support a candidate, like that Fox News piece that came out yesterday about me and Saran. Underneath, it's like, donate to a candidate that Fox News hates. And then I just put the link.
That's amazing. I think the reputation that Blue Sky has is probably unfair, but it's one that I think is hard to shake for the site, which is that like it is. Well, actually, it's much like what Howard Dean was accused of building in the 2000s, which was this insular community of internet freaks. And what's fascinating, and I think this speaks to the kind of larger bias that we've been talking about this whole episode, which is that Ron Paul comes along like basically a year after Howard Dean, does the exact same thing, but because he's tapping into like disaffected, angry men on 4chan and Reddit and like Bitcoin maxis, he's heralded as like this great visionary.
Right. And it's a thing where we're like, oh, well, Twitter is the normal site to go on when every time I log on Twitter, there's someone pushing like overtly pro-Holocaust bullshit in my Discover feed, or the Department of Homeland Security is quote posting me. Like, why is that the default normal?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, when we're talking about how the Democrats are approaching this, the Obama win is massive for them, and I think also freezes them in time, right? So is it fair to say that like you kind of got your start, your political awakening during the Bernie era? Does that feel right?
Yeah, but it wasn't because of Bernie. It was because of Trump in terms of not liking him. Yeah. So I grew up Republican, and then Trump came on the scene. That was when I had moved to Tucson, and which is much less segregated by income than like Dallas, Texas is. And so I had friends who were smarter than me that couldn't go to college, even with like a full ride. And that was when I was like, maybe Ronald Reagan isn't right about everything. And then Trump came on the scene, and my parents and I were like, ooh, we don't like him. Maybe Marco Rubio will save us. But like my parents voted for Hillary. I was 17, so I couldn't vote, but we did like voter registration drives and things like that. At that point, I was still like a little scared of, you know, the S word.
Socialist. Okay. That you meant like okay. Yeah. Can you talk a bit about not being scared of that word anymore? Because I think if we're looking at this story of American politics as the left and the progressives, and I never know, like, to me, they're not the same thing, but I think for an average person, like the left includes Democrats. In my mind, they don't, but like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. America doesn't have a leftist party. Anyways, not a real one. But okay, so if we're talking about like the story of like how they learn to embrace influence and the fact that like, you know, they are struggling with it through most of the 19th and the 20th century. And then Obama wins and they go, okay, like you said, like, how do we create authenticity? And that to me is the story of the last 15 years, is like trying to create authenticity, trying to force Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris into this authentic, real person box that they were really never, like, that politically they were never meant for. So, you know, how did you become more comfortable talking about, let's say, like political beliefs that don't fit inside the mainstream Democratic box? Because it feels like a lot of the other candidates, Beto O'Rourke even to a degree, felt like they were trying to reverse engineer that. They were trying to go backwards, and it feels like you're sort of starting from first principles.
Like as a candidate?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
or I guess even before being a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, like when I started to be like, oh, maybe my values don't actually align with this party that I claim to be a part of. Because my parents, you know, I didn't grow up in like a Christian nationalist household. They raised me, they probably wouldn't have used this term at the time, but like I was raised in a very feminist household. There was not a second growing up where I didn't feel like I could do anything I wanted when I grew up. Right. So there were a lot of ideas that, just like a lot of Americans, that I was like, oh yeah, that would be good in terms of like free college or universal health care or all these things. But we're taught as Americans that we don't deserve good things, that misery is almost like fetishized, you know?
Yeah.
You should struggle for your kids to have a better life instead of just your kids having a better life and you also having a better life. That safety and security are things that are dependent on how much you make and not human rights. So for a long time, for like the, you know, last year of high school, first year of college, I was still trying to get over that hump of like, oh wait, actually, what if we realized all of this is fake and engineered by people richer than us? So that way we don't question them. What if we're the richest country in the world? Why can't people afford healthcare? And I think right now, those ideas are more on the table for the average American because we're seeing so much disparity in wealth. We are seeing so many people struggle. I mean, I am struggling to pay my bills, just like so many other people out there. And being able to communicate that, I feel like a lot of times, especially the Democratic Party, takes the wrong lessons from things like the manufacturer authenticity thing.
100%.
But like Obama and his successful, you know, digital program, the lesson was, okay, we should spam every person that has ever donated to any candidate and sell the data to each other. So that way we can spam them even more. So that way everyone's phones are completely unusable because you're getting 20 texts from James Carville asking for a $5 donation, or else his house will be personally set on fire by Trump. Like, that's not the lesson you should take. The lesson you should take is these are tools that you can now use, and not just for fundraising. Like our fundraising firm, the people that we work with, is really, they're super cool. They're down to try some new stuff. Like they send out emails and texts that don't have a donate link. That does not help them at all. They get nothing from that. But we want to update people on the campaign, or when someone donates to the campaign, we send them a thank you text with a picture of my cat, and we give them like a bunch of different unsubscribe options. Like you can receive fewer texts or no texts at all. And we have people asking us to send more texts and emails, which means that they're engaging with the campaign, and especially if they're local, that translates to votes. And so I think part of the authenticity discussion, a lot of it is just like, if there is not a time to say fuck it, like if now is not the time to say fuck it and just try something new.
Yeah.
And try to push for a much better future and not just the status quo. I don't know what time that would be. I feel like when Democrats are in power, we can't challenge the status quo because then, you know, we're undermining the party. And when they're not in power, it's like we can't challenge the status quo because then, you know, we won't get in power again. So when are we supposed to challenge the status quo? Because guess what? It might be working for your job security. It's not working for the rest of us.
The thing that I find so fascinating and frustrating about looking back at basically, you know, how we got here is that, you know, the Republicans lose to Obama, but they learn the right lessons in a way that is like absolutely maddening because like John McCain, total wet fart, like, you know, the history will forget his presidential campaign. But the Tea Party and the Ron Paul movement were able to become this internet community that I think has been very effectively weaponized over the years and created like the Republicans created a very effective playbook for using, you know, at first, like the Ron Paul people were called, like, they were a joke. They were called like Paul bots. They were considered just like total weirdo Redditors who, I mean, they probably were. And the Tea Party people, it's something that at the time I did not think of as an internet-based movement, but like the more research that we've done during this for this show during this part of history, like they definitely were. They were organizing on Twitter. And so you have Republican thinkers, Steve Bannon being chief among them, like realizing that like if you tap into that, if you create a version of authenticity for those people, if you find the people who can talk to those people, you can mobilize them. And if you look at any of the Democrats at this time talking about this stuff, they are totally dismissive even after Obama wins. And that's, I think, how you end up with like the car crash of 2016 and the total dismissiveness of 2018 when Bernie is surging and you have this like dirtbag leftist sort of write-off vibe from mainstream Dems. And obviously, like, yeah, were there problems with how that movement was working? Sure, whatever. But like, they clearly did not understand what was happening. And it's I feel relieved that there are Democratic candidates like yourself, like Zoran, who are like actually like understanding how to talk to people about things that matter. But it is crazy that it took this long. Yeah,
it's crazy, especially because it just seems like common sense to me. I spent so much of last year as a progressive and as a Palestinian trying to use any capital, any influence I had to change the narrative and pressure Democratic leaders, especially behind the scenes, like trying to be like, hey, I've been Palestinian my whole life. I get that there are things you can't say or that you're worried about saying, but like you have to speak to a Palestinian person publicly. You have to do these things. Otherwise, you are going to lose a lot of voters that would vote for you otherwise. And no one listened or cared. I was in rooms. I was asked by a PAC that was really involved in the Harris campaign to lead outreach to Arab voters in swing states. And I said, I will do it for free if you get me 10 minutes on camera with Kamala Harris. And we can talk about it beforehand. Like, this is not a gotcha. You're talking with the whitest looking Palestinian you'll ever see. And unfortunately, that's less controversial than talking to like my cousin in a hijab. And you guys know this is wrong. You guys know that this is hurting the campaign. And they were like, yeah, we do. Like, they knew it. No, they knew it. And the worst part is like the people that are coordinating those things are like lower level people. And they were like, but they know that their bosses know it's wrong. And not just morally, but electorally. They know that it was costing them politically. And yet they did it anyway.
Can you say why they just kept avoiding the issue of Palestine anyway, even though they knew that it was the glaring thing dividing their party?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, is it's dividing the base. Like, it's not, there are a lot of people that would have voted for Kamala, but just didn't. And so like the people that I was talking to, you know, I think a lot of it is just like worry about what the outrage could be. But you're watching children starve to death. I don't know, like, the American people are watching this and we know that our tax dollars are paying for it. And, you know, I felt bad because I was talking to like a bunch of like lower mid-level staff in this call, but I was like, just so y'all know, I'm going to go off for a second, because the people that contacted me were the ones that were coordinating creators at the DNC. And I had called them multiple times leading up to the DNC and said, hey, I am a Palestinian person and I need to talk to a surrogate. I would love to talk about it to a surrogate. Once again, this is not a gotcha, but you need to have like some honest conversations about this, just like any of them. And then I learned later that none of my requests for surrogates went to any of the offices I requested them from.
Insane.
And so those people contacted me and they were like, we remember how passionate you were about this issue. And that's why we wanted to reach out. And I was like, okay, guys, like, can we just all for a second pause? You guys know this is wrong. Like, you know this is wrong, and you know that you're using me. Like, you know it. And I frankly don't mind being used if it means not having Trump in office and also moving the needle a little bit, because I know there is nothing more convincing to my family, people in my family who did not vote because they did not feel like either nominee saw them as human. Nothing would convince them more than Harris just talking to a Palestinian person. And if that person has to have fake blonde hair and blue eyes, I'll do it. But frankly, you already had vetted Democratic elected officials who are willing to speak to you at the DNC on stage that for some reason we were able to discriminate against for their ethnicity. If you plugged in any other ethnicity, race, religion, sexuality, and said that type of person can't speak at the DNC, there would be outrage. But for some reason, it's fine when it's Palestinians. I was like, you know that nothing that you want to do on this outreach thing is going to work, as well as just talking about it. And they were like, yeah, we do.
Has there been any acknowledgement to you from establishment people saying like, yeah, we've learned the lesson that being cowards was not a good idea?
No, I think the lesson a lot of our leaders have gotten were actually the voters were wrong, and we should blame Arabs, Muslims, and anyone who's anti-war.
The voters are wrong.
The voters are wrong, and we should always blame the voters, according to so many of our leaders. And also, like, it's so crazy because if this contingent of voters was big enough to change the course of the election, then you should have considered them. Or were they small enough that they didn't matter? And so actually it wasn't wrong to ignore them. It's like Schrodinger's fucking anti-war movement. I have no idea.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that frustration has been expressed here.
I will respect the off-the-record nature of my meeting with this world. Garbage Day myself was invited to the White House in December 2023. and basically to talk to Biden's digital strategy team at the time. And so, yeah, I'll keep the exact details off the record. But what I will say is I walked out of that meeting being like, Biden's going to lose. And that wasn't even his campaign team. That was just like the people running his day-to-day socials. And I spent probably about 2 hours in a room talking to them and getting a sense of like how they saw the internet, what they thought about. A big conversation topic was Twitter, the use of Twitter. Should they stay on Twitter? They seemed completely incapable of understanding that 2023, 2024 was not the same as 2015, 2016, or even
2020.
No, but I'm saying even further back, because for them, like, I could have had that conversation, like their side of the conversation. I could have had that conversation in my first newsroom during the Obama era about like, how do you make content go viral on the internet? That's
the thing is like, stop trying so hard to make it go viral. Just do it.
But that's the problem, I think, for these people, which is that like, you can't, actually, I'm going to disagree with the point that I almost just made, because I think you're right. And I think the proof is Tim Walz. And for the rest of my life, I will be an old man in a chair being like, we were so close to keeping democracy in America if they had just let Tim Walz continue to talk on camera.
Just let him cook.
Because like, I remember their freak speech. And for me, that was just like,
I felt hope.
Oh, like, this is the blueprint. This is an establishment Dem in middle age, almost a senior citizen, getting up and just being like, I'm a normal person. He did a Subway takes where he talks about how to do couponing at Menards. I was completely charmed by this guy because he just was a person. And I think that a lot of establishment Dems are saying, Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer, they're saying, well, they can't be relatable. But it's like, no, like, they can just be human beings, and human beings are naturally relatable. Like, that's how this works.
Because if you have hobbies beyond call time, which I hope you have, you should be talking about, like, be a person. I think we both demonize and lionize politicians too much to the point where they don't even seem human. That's why I try to be like really open about my interests and things that I like and just being a person, because then people realize that the people that are in charge are just people too. And elections are when you get hired or fired.
Yeah, I think so too. And I after the break, which once again, our Democratic think tank is crunching the numbers to decide which ads you, the listener, would like more, and then thus like us more for hearing. But after the break, we're going to talk about Bernie Sanders and how he learned how to be a person in public. Right after the break. I want to end talking about Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns, because I think that they are the first version of the playbook that AOC would use, and then from AOC you get sort of like the modern wave. Do you feel like that's fair?
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, they kind of walked so we could run. I think a lot about AOC in terms of like being a young woman. She had to like fight tooth and nail for respect that should have just been given, and that has helped people like me, especially young women, run as well.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the attacks that were used on her in the beginning are now being used again. Like the photo of you as a bartender is not that different from the AOC dancing video.
They also literally say, oh my God, another bartender in Congress. And it's like, once again, I thought you liked the working class.
They don't. They want the working class to die. They want to kill them like dogs.
Everyone that complains about a bartender in Congress is the worst tipper you have ever known.
100%. So Bernie's campaign, for those who don't remember, had no TV ads until November 2015. Hillary was spending twice as much on TV ads than digital ads. And his fundraising was completely online pretty much as well. He only $14 million of the $230 million that his campaign fundraised was from offline. And 43% of the donations were made on mobile, which is also interesting. And his big strategy in the pre-primaries was targeting high schoolers who would be 18 by election day, which I think is very clever. And his Twitter account was run by a 27-year-old, and there is a very funny Business Insider article about it. It opens with Bernie commenting on the Republican presidential debate. The 74-year-old candidate would sort of talk to his 27-year-old media director, Hector Segala, and Segala turned Bernie's endless commentary into Twitter threads. So he was like reciting stuff into Twitter, basically. And this is what it reads. It says, some 17 million people reached during the debate, according to the campaign's Twitter data reviewed by Reuters. It was the first in a string of Twitter wins by Sanders during the presidential campaign contest, widely viewed as a coming-of-age moment for social media in national politics. Sanders didn't even stop when the debate was interrupted by commercials. When an ad for a new Tom Hanks film appeared, he tweeted, "Tom Hanks, finally, somebody who makes sense." And it was considered very anti-establishment and I think most importantly authentic. It captured the voice of an old man watching TV, and it turns out people like that. That is, I think, the playbook that leads directly to AOC. She is often thought of as modernizing Obama, but I think a lot of the digital work was started with Bernie. Her campaign team made Reach, which was a new canvassing app that just totally changed how they were fundraising. The video of her dancing as a teenager ended up being huge for her. And I think this is something that a guest on this show brought up that I wanted to throw to you too. So we recently did an episode with Maxwell Frost, and he talked about capturing attention. And I think it's something that Bernie was really good at. AOC is very good at. Obama sort of, but Maxwell Frost talked about this idea of like when the Trump spotlight or the MAGA spotlight points at you, your job as a politician is to figure out how to transfer that energy into something useful for you. Does that feel correct?
100%. I mean, we kind of referenced it at the top of this, but that video of an ICE agent picking me up and throwing me on the ground, that was actually a third time an ICE agent has thrown me. They really like throwing me. Yeah, they love dragging my friend and throwing me, and I don't know why. Anyways, it went unbelievably viral. And I think a lot of it, what I've referenced a lot, is kind of feeling like Upton Sinclair with The Jungle. Like you aim for the heart and you hit him in the stomach, because the jungle is the reason we have like food safety laws, when it was really about the abuse of workers. And, I've been protesting outside the Broadview ICE detention center every Friday for weeks now. And it's because of the conditions that are in there. Because like that's what ICE is willing to do in front of cameras. What are they willing to do behind windows that are literally covered up with plywood?
100%.
And so, we had all of this attention, and we were like, every interview I had, second sentence was exactly what I just told you. Like, let's get it where it should be. And we actually had so many people donate to the campaign, which was, unbelievably moving, but it also felt kind of icky, because we're there to try to help immigrants and shed light on this. And so we ended up donating $10,000 to local immigrants' rights groups. So ICER, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, Sanctuary Evanston, Sanctuary Niles, and the National Lawyers Guild. But when it comes to that capturing attention thing, that's something that I think you, Ryan, probably understand really well as well. Like if you have a background in media, not media training TM, but a background in media, you understand how these narratives work, and you understand what is going to happen and how to preempt it. I saw what was happening, and I was like, how can we shift this attention to where it really should be? And we were able to, get a lot of people there for our press conference the week before last. Last week, Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin finally came to the facility. We have a lot more elected officials showing up, and that's the type of movement we need. But we also see this thing in the Democratic Party where it's like being afraid of embracing the right, not embracing the right as in moving right, but embracing the right as in, you call me some crazy radical Antifa socialist, whatever the hell you want to call me, be like, yeah, sure. Anyways,
right. Correct.
Check out my campaign.
Yeah.
Come on stream, like whatever.
Yeah, I remember I remember the conversations about this idea starting like 10 years ago, where especially they started in newsrooms, as I think you know as well, where it's like, okay, what do you do when the mob comes for you? And a lot of editors started with this idea of like, put out a statement, throw the reporter under the bus, kowtow to the Republicans like Ted Cruz, who kind of come in at the end after all the Nazis have had their fun. And I think the attitude has shifted, maybe not at the institutions at that level, but I do think for most people who've been through this, you kind of know that unless they're calling in bomb threats or swatting your house, you kind of don't have to care about them.
Yeah. And like, look, they have tried that with me. My partner, Ben, has dealt with that even more.
Sure.
And these people are dangerous. I think that, kind of what we were talking about at the top of like, they have now subjected the entire country to what disinformation reporters have been dealing with the last decade, but we like chose to do that. But a big part of my campaign, whether it's like using our resources to materially improve the community or doing this type of communication shit, is supposed to provide like a blueprint for Democrats, even the most cynical of consultants. Like if you can't just do something good for the community because it's good to do, then do it because it makes people want to come to your campaign office. It makes people want to volunteer because they feel helpless and your campaign is doing food drives or car washes or whatever it may be, coat drives. Like, great way to help a campaign. I was at a drag queen story hour counter protest because some, insane people were yelling at children that they were going to hell. Yeah. And I flipped off a lady for doing that. And Republicans tried to make it this big thing, being like, oh, wow, this is so disrespectful. And a lot of people, that I've been talking to throughout the campaign, who I very much love and respect, who have been kind of like mentors throughout all of this, were like, you should probably put out a statement being like, I'm sorry for talking with my fingers rather than my words. And then one of them, who was amazing, Bill, he's like, just middle-aged white dude, was like, no, you're not sorry.
Yeah.
And if you're telling kids they're going to hell, they deserve to be flipped off. And so I made a video that said, no, I'm not sorry. And then we said, you know what, if we reach this fundraising goal we have, we'll make merch, because we had a bunch of people asking if we can make merch. And our creative director put something together, and it has been to date our most successful merch drop of me flipping off this bigot.
That's cool.
And it just says, we're not sorry. And it's like, if you can't stand with trans people because it's the right thing to do, if you like feel the urge to walk back a statement but might not, consider not making that statement, because hey, maybe people want to fight her now. And that wasn't my intention going in. But like, look, if the right is going to try to act like I'm the Antichrist for literally flipping off a woman who was telling children they were going to go to hell, sure, that's eyes on our campaign.
I want to end today's episode sort of with a question that I've had, tied to what we've been talking about. So if we can acknowledge that like the word influencer, extremely gendered, and it basically just describes like anyone that figures out how to use non-traditional paths to politics. And it's something that now, because of the internet, effectively any young candidate, or really like almost any candidate, probably like there's a good chance that after this next election, if we have it, there's a world where like someone who doesn't have some kind of online following can't really win. They have to figure out how to do it. And I guess my question is like, is that good for democracy? And part of me says like, yes, it opens doors for people that could have never been involved in politics, which is good. But it also changes the function of democracy in ways that I think are very unpredictable. And it's something that I keep coming back to, where it's like, okay, cool. Like for every Zoran, we get a Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? Or we get someone like John Fetterman who can like walk the walk of an influencer, but can't talk the talk. And once they get into office, all that sort of like, I'm your big goofy Philly uncle disappears because they had a really a crack shot social team.
Yeah. And shout out to Annie Wu.
What she did was unbelievable, because that guy is nothing like that. And
look, she'll say the same thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, he had a stroke.
Yes, to be fair. No other prominent politicians may be suffering mental problems from their strokes right now. That's definitely not happening. So I guess like my question for you is like, do you think that this is like a good path to go down? The idea of 2032 being an all influencer primary.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But I also think there are shades of gray here. We're talking about authenticity. People are really sick of everything.
Sure. Yeah.
And there is part of it where like, especially when it comes to like the young people are going to save us. I'm like, there are young people that are grifters. Just like, please be aware of that when you're looking at the young people that you want to save us. I can say on my end, like we've had unbelievable digital reach and we have translated that to amazing ground support. But like, this is still very much an election, especially because I'm going up against 15 years of name ID for, we're polling second, but the person ahead and behind me both have like years of yard signs
Right.
and campaign ads and all of that stuff. It doesn't make this any easier. And that is very true with the money aspect too. We need public funding of elections. We need to overturn Citizens United, and we need to make running for office more accessible, because there are a lot of young candidates that are trying to run campaigns similar to my own, which is awesome. And especially ones at the local level that are doing a lot of mutual aid stuff. We're really thrilled to see it. It's still extremely difficult to do so if you don't already have the existing platform that I started out with.
Right.
I don't think we will ever get to a point where it's just an influencer election. There are still so many people that don't get their information from the internet, even young people.
Thank God.
Yes, thank God. Like, if you are just banking on the internet to win you an election, I got really bad news for you. Tons of people won't show up to vote. Tons of people won't show up to vote.
It's true. People hate voting.
And you also get into your own echo chamber, whatever algorithms you're showing up on. You might be like, wow, I have all of this support online, but a lot of times those are people that already follow you. A lot of times, especially if it's like the same view number, the same like number, you're just reaching the same people over and over again. It might be flattering to your ego, but you're not actually reaching new people, and especially people in your district or your state.
I tell that to Grant all the time when he wants to do things for our audience. And I say that the people who are already listening are worthless to me. They're lower than dogs to me. But the new people who come in, I love them because they're new. And I think that's important. That's a good rule.
Does that mean I'm a dog shit guest because I've already been here?
No, you're good. You're good because
But I've already been here.
Yeah, but you're the guest.
Okay.
The listener, get out of here.
If anyone sends an email saying, been listening for a long time, here's my thoughts, Ryan goes, get it out of here.
I feed it into ChatGPT immediately, and I say, tell me how to respond.
He drives up the electricity costs for an entire town just to get rid of your letter.
Exactly. I ether an entire Texas town with my electricity consumption. Yeah. But yeah, as you were saying.
But I think that like, this is a long way to say, I think that the good things about the internet and politics is that it can be an equalizer. You can fundraise on it, even if you're not already rich. You can reach people that you wouldn't have reached unless you were already like an incumbent politician or someone that was really wealthy that has maybe like donated to a bunch of places all over your area. Bad things is all the stuff we know that are bad about the internet. Misinformation.
Sure.
Certain characters that might not be all in good faith trying to take control of things.
Yep.
We see this over and over and over again. And so like, I think it's just it's like when people are like, AI is going to ruin all of our jobs. I personally think AI needs a lot more regulation, but I also don't think it is the end of the world because it is not good at doing things. I think it's going to wreak a lot of havoc, but there is no way to replicate the human mind, body, and soul. We're going to see kind of a new way of doing politics, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. But I'm really trying my hardest, even when I know it could be so much easier to be like a little griftier, to work with, this firm or do that strategy. I'm very cognizant of how people are watching our campaign and how things might be copied. And so I'm trying to stick to my morals the best I can, which has always been my life motto, is like, it's always better to stick to your morals, even to your own detriment. But it is hard if you haven't already worked in media, understand the right, and have an existing platform. So let's make running for office a lot easier. Let's have public funding of elections, and fuck Citizens United.
A thing we've been talking about a lot recently is the vortex of Democratic cringe, which I think Obama's relatable, cool, was trying to be copied has been a part of it. Have you been involved in any conversations about like trying to explain to people that what they're doing is cringy and like is working in reverse?
So I said in my campaign launch video that Democrats need to grow a fucking spine. And that's just how I talk. And now we have seen a lot of Democrats start cursing, but it sounds kind of like a 13-year-old.
It's like when Taylor Swift swears. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, no, the point isn't that you're cursing. It's not that you're saying fuck. It's that you sound like a human being. And if you are outraged at something, people believe you.
Sure.
That makes fucking sense to me.
And that was Ryan's least authentic sounding fuck he's ever said on the show.
I swear a lot on this show. I have a curse word problem. Like I do have a problem.
I've been told I'm fired if I curse at Ryan again on the show.
That's right. Well, I'm excited to see what kind of AI candidate establishment Dems create rather than have to do any soul searching. I'm sure that will go well for them. And I want to thank you for coming back on the show. I love our second time returning guests so much more than our one-off guests, who I don't care for. If people want to...
Has Maxwell Frost been on twice?
He's only been on once. So
that was not on purpose.
He's only been on once, and he was fine. He's fine, but I won't say how I feel about him until he comes back on. Then we can decide. But if people want to follow you on the internet, I know we've talked a lot about where you are on the internet these days, but where should they follow you?
The best way to follow me and also to support the campaign or learn more about my campaign is at catforillinois.com. That's KATFOR Illinois.com. And if you want to be involved in our campaign, you can join our campaign volunteer Discord. You don't even have to live next door to me. You can help from wherever you are. Discord.gg/catforillinois.
Hey, it's Ryan. If you like what you just watched, subscribe to our channel and check out our other episodes. Not only will it help us grow, but each will help other folks like you who might need a little reminder to chill out and touch grass.